All right, world, what's up? Welcome back to another episode of WunderCAST. As always, I'm your host, Ryker Taylor. I'm joined with producer Alex in the studio. And today we have a very special guest, Taylor McAlpine with Local LBK. So fun fact, Taylor was one of our earlier guests, probably 3 years ago. Mm-hmm. If you happen to catch that episode, thank you for still watching this show 3 years later, as our production quality has gone drastically up. But yeah, no, we're really excited to have Taylor back in, catch his journey over what it's been over the last 3 years. But before we do that, Taylor, I'm going to just kind of let you introduce yourself and assume that no one heard that first podcast.
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
I never assume that. I'm always happy if anyone even knows what we're doing. So,
sure.
I kind of start there and like, oh, yeah, catch me up if you know.
Sure.
Familiar, how do you do? It's great market research on my end, too.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm Taylor. Grew up here in Lubbock guy, and went through tech, and me and a friend said, hey, we want to start something that showcases Lubbock. So originally it was just me going around with an Instagram account and taking pictures of my lunch and my lattes. It was truly that simple. Going to First Friday Art Trail, going to the Farmers Market, one of my favorite events, and saying, hey, this is what it's like looking at Lubbock through the lens of local. There's a whole lot more to appreciate than a lot of us are aware of. And there's a lot more cool things, talented people, fun dishes to try, things like that. So it grew as an anonymous account, 5,000 on Instagram. I'm like, okay, this is cool. Got some traction. Eventually, me and a friend put together a program that showcased all the Lubbock events and had a website that plugged into Facebook's API. And so we had all of Lubbock events all in one place. That was really cool. Facebook went through their whole security thing a while back. So they cut a lot of their APIs. So we didn't have that feature available, and that's when we switched our model to Keep a Local program. So go around town shopping with independent businesses, and when you show your Keep a Local card, you would get a reward and a discount. So our business model was selling Keep a Local cards and having businesses join as a member. And that grew really well. At one point, we had 70 businesses signed up under that model, and so that was really cool. We're like, man, this is working. People like it. The social media side keeps growing. And did that for 3 years. And then last summer, we went digital and launched an app. And so you can now find Local LBK in the App Store and same functionality. And actually, at the end of this month, we're going to be doing a significant update and pretty much reworking the whole system. We partnered with Outserved and have a whole new analytics software available to help inform us and our business members of like how effective our platform is and bringing them the value of knowing how everything works in our ecosystem. And then on the flip side, getting a lot more content out there. And so just showcasing Lubbock as it is. There's different organizations in town that are really proud of Lubbock, but none of them do it through the lens of a local as a local to locals. And so that's the niche we stick in. We want to tell those stories, showcase Lubbock, and just have fun. Yeah.
Well, so yeah, there's a lot to unpack there. And so I think where I want to start with first is it just started out, taking pictures of your lunch and your latte, like you said. And it wasn't necessarily this thing that you really had set out to grow maybe into like a full-fledged business. At what point did you have that realization of like, okay, this is something that I really want to like delve into?
So in all honesty, at the time when I started, I was like, oh yeah, I'm in business school right now. I'm taking some entrepreneurship classes. I can start a business, and what do I do? Start an Instagram account. Yeah. So that's kind of the naivety that was in it. There's totally a way to monetize an audience and a platform, but there was no sophisticated business plan or much thinking. Yeah. We started it with $700 kind of thing. Okay. And so it was pretty much taking an interest, turning it into a hobby, and then trying to figure out how can we turn a hobby into a business plan. Yeah. So that's kind of the journey that it's gone through so far.
For sure. Now, you and I, we got started around the same time frame as like when I started WunderTree and when you started Local LBK. And we've kind of gotten to see each other grow up in business for sure. It's really, really cool to see where you've gone. Talk to me about, because whenever I think of Keep It Local movement and whenever I have anybody talk to me about like local business, I always ask them if they know who you are. Because like to me, you really do represent like this whole local movement. So we had Dylan Moore on the podcast a few months back, and with Pecan Ridge, and he's really in on that, pushing the local guy and supporting that. But I put you in that same kind of playing field when it comes to like championing local businesses.
Oh, that's
like,
an honor.
Yeah, for sure.
Mr. Lubbock, in my opinion. So.
For sure. Well, I definitely, yeah, there it is. Celebration time for sure. I definitely put you up on in that arena, like I said, for the local business person, when it comes to local businesses and things like that. Talk to me about the impact that you feel like local LBK's had in the community. And, just over the last 5 years, it's really clear to see like this transition, like very visibly that's happened to this shift to focusing on local. So kind of walk me through that whole thing.
It's interesting you bring this up. I was having this conversation just this week. I feel like local LBK has had a really cool opportunity to impact Lubbock both directly and indirectly. In some ways, like one of the first case studies of local LBK is we took a picture of our pasta at Italian Garden, and they said the next day like 5 tables came in. I'm like, okay, that's killer. We can help a business have a new revenue because we just took a picture of our lunch. That is awesome. So that there's all sorts of direct examples for that. From there, we hosted events. We've done some fun things called Beyond Broadway. It was a pop-up speakeasy, 4-plate meal, open bar, prohibition theme, live jazz, invite only. It was killer. Yeah. And so making things like that haven't happened in Lubbock before happen. And then on the flip side, the whole just like support local theme. So many people in Lubbock, I feel like, have picked up on it. And a good example is when probably around the time we were doing those first podcasts, we were vendors at the farmer's market. We were doing some Lubbock shirts. We had a Prairie Dog Town. We had the locals with all the kind of natural ecosystem from the area of the bison, things like that. And just like Lubbock shirts, hats. Since then, there are so many people that are putting Lubbock on stuff. Yes. And so I think we tested the market to say, hey, people are proud of Lubbock. Yeah. And so many people have been able to grow their own companies or brands or styles because of that. Yeah. And so that's really cool to see that pride has been contagious.
Sure. And that's one reason that I say like I put you as like up there as somebody championing the cause, because I was watching you do this before it was popular. Like you really did, or very much so on the forefront of the trend. And so even if people don't credit maybe what you've done, I definitely credit you for what you've done. Oh yeah. And the work you've done, and again, like just throwing the logos on the t-shirts, and now everyone's doing that. So.
Yeah. And I don't need the credit.
Sure.
I don't want the credit, in all honesty. The fact is, like, with Local LBK, our mission is to make Lubbock a better place. Sure. And so if there's other people out there doing that, either indirectly inspired by or directly affiliated with, the mission's happening.
And that's what I love. Like, I love that you're doing this, not, not for the credit, but just to, honestly, to better the local community. Oh, yeah. Because growing up in Lubbock myself, they really just, you can feel something different in the air the last few years when it comes to local businesses and the artisan community. I think that's something that you've had a strong hand in, is like the artisan community. So like the local creatives, I know that you've been a huge supporter of us and, other agencies and just a lot of different things. So, I really think that's pretty cool.
Oh yeah. One of my next projects is there's kind of like meta themes that I'm playing with. And one of them is downtown, one of them supporting local business. The other one is like legitimizing the creative scene in Lubbock. Yeah. And so some people take that and take it into a commercial sense of advertising, marketing. Others take that into the fine arts and sell their wares and craft. We want to help create legitimacy behind that. And so we want to find ways of what projects can we work on that gives them professional rates to do the work that they do and puts Lubbock in the spotlight. And so we have some film pieces in the works. We have collaborations in the works that really are just trying to move people towards how can we put Lubbock on the map and support people in doing what they love doing.
Sure. So obviously our target audience with the podcast like this is other, entrepreneurs and business owners. So I would be a fool to not ask you, kind of like your business journey. So obviously what the app is today versus what it started out, very different, as you kind of alluded to at the beginning. But can you kind of walk me through some of the things that have led over even just the last 3 years since the last time that we had you on the show? Things are very different. I think when you were on the show last, one of the topics we were talking about was Facebook going through that transition of like cutting off the events, and like y'all had just gotten that API cut off. And so y'all were trying to figure out your next step. Yeah. So it's cool now on the back end of that 3 years later to kind of see where it's gone. So talk me through that journey a little bit.
Every year, we've pretty much practiced a different business model, and maybe that's silly. We may be pivoting too quickly and not giving it time to prove out. Year one, we were selling business memberships for $100, and that got you one feature and affiliation with our organization for the year. Year 2, we switched to a subscription model, $50 a month, gets you multiple features in association with Local LBK. Year 3 was deploying that, but at the same time launching the app. And so, but then that was COVID. And so that changed everything. We actually stopped our business subscriptions to let businesses keep cash on hand because we had no idea what was coming when it first happened. And so naive on my part, but the intent was there of, hey, businesses, take care of yourselves. We're okay.
Yeah.
And so now in 2021, we're revisiting that business member subscription. We still have our consumer subscription. That's always been there. $5 a month through the Local LBK app gets you access to rewards and discounts. But now with our new platform without Served, we have different membership plans. You can still do a free plan. You can get listed on the Local LBK website app for free. We never wanted the marketing budget to be a barrier of entry for someone because it's all about the mission. And then from there, we've created business tiers to let people have access and get more value out of our platform because we have an audience. And so that's really the quick iterations that Local LBK has gone through.
Sure. What's led to, like you mentioned, like you're pivoting at this point, it's been kind of like on a yearly basis. What leads you to each pivot? Is it like market research or is it like what your capabilities are in the moment? Kind of talk me through that.
A lot of it is realizing capabilities and deliverables.
Okay.
So year 1, like, selling something for $100, we're undercutting ourselves majorly.
Sure.
In the value we know we can provide. Changing that to $50 a month. Okay. We are now delivering 4 features through our social media platforms. That was creating too much work for me as a solo entrepreneur.
Sure.
And so I'm like, I need to change my deliverable, but I know my value is still there. Then COVID. And then now, because we're technology based, we have so many more capabilities. And so as we can add plugins, as we can develop more code, we can provide more value without making more work for ourselves.
Sure. It's scale. So technology scales.
Is becoming more powerful and creating the value for people. And so that's what letting me build these other programs and projects that can bring more value outside of just the technology ecosystem.
For sure. And I love that because you had that same epiphany that, I think that a lot of entrepreneurs have. And that's like, okay, am I charging enough? And then can I scale? And right. And so you kind of figured out like, okay, I'm finally charging about where my value is at. Right. But I can't scale with this. I can barely do handle the work that I've got. And yeah, you really touched on a good point there. Which is going the software route allows you to automate certain things and allows you to still provide value and honestly probably provide better value because the software is going to be more real time. They're going to get the answers they want or things like that more quickly than having to go through you. And maybe you're available and maybe you're not that day. So yeah, kind of talk me through since you've launched the app, COVID has happened. You kind of launched it kind of in the middle of COVID, right? Yeah. So tell me all about that. Yeah.
So launching in the middle of COVID had pros and cons. Pro is the theme of supporting local has grown so much in the community. People actually see that, if we don't support these businesses now, we're not going to have them on the back end of this. Yep. And so the motive to support local was huge. And I think that theme, that internal part of just like, hey, we don't want to lose this in our community is still here. And so we can play on that. And by play on that, I mean like hone in on it, actually make the opportunity to be able to the community to say, hey, we don't need 8 Walmarts. We don't need 18 Starbucks. Go support your mom and pop shops or these local original brands. Because Lubbock is better because of it. We've become more of a tourist destination. We become a more unique community. The competition becomes better for those businesses and all those markets. My background's in coffee, and so like even seeing Monomyth enter the scene, raised the bar. And so because of that, when Sugar Browns opened their new shop, they went for a new aesthetic. And so everyone is just like, oh, hey, I see what you're doing. I love it. I want to match that or beat it. And it's not in the, I'm going to beat you and block you out. It's like, we need to provide our customers a better value.
Sure.
And so when Evie Mae's came into the barbecue scene, all the other barbecue shops started saying, we can play with something nicer or different than what they offer.
Growing up and this is not a knock on them in any way because I still go there frequently and enjoy it. But what barbecue scene, since that's something you mentioned in Lubbock, was pretty much locally Bigham's and J&M. And not to knock on their product by any means, but when the Shack and Evie Mae's opened up, that was another type of game right there. And now you see like the most recent Bigham's that opened up on Milwaukee. Now they've even raised their game a little bit. So I've seen this barbecue war. I've seen the coffee shop war and it's not, I say war, it's not really a war, but there's like, everyone's getting better because everyone's getting better.
Oh yeah. And because of that, Lubbock is establishing itself.
Yeah.
Lubbock's on the map for barbecue now because of this.
Yes.
And hopefully we can be even more so in the higher rankings as they keep doing it.
And you know what else we're on the map for now? Brewery. Yeah. That's right.
Love it.
And that's something, again. Yeah. There you go with the sound effect. Yeah. 5 years ago, I honestly would not have thought we would have been. Because if you think about it, if you think back 5 years ago, Two Docks wasn't a thing yet. The brewery LBK was not a thing yet. Good Line, is it Good Line, Gold Line? They weren't.
They were in Lubbock. They were probably playing with the business model.
Yeah. So like, there's several of these like breweries, for instance, were not here, or the coffee shops. Like, I think Sugar Brown's had just like reopened 5 or 6 years ago, right after having been closed for a while.
It's been a little longer than that.
Okay, but yeah. So like, it's been very recent. Like, Yellow House has been around for a while, but I think they've risen to more prominence. And then you got the Monomyths of the world. And then, Sugar Brown's now having multiple locations. Gold Stripe, they've been around a little bit longer than that 5-year mark, but even them expanding. So you have all these local businesses that are starting to like come into town, the downtown revitalization that's going on. And you got the West Table, and now one of my favorite restaurants, Dirk's. You got that down there. So it's just been really cool to see, like, literally 5 years ago, I wouldn't have thought that we'd be on the map for barbecue.
Oh, completely.
Or for brewery.
The way I see Lubbock is it's the playground. Lubbock is a big enough market that we know we don't have everything we want. And so that means we can take business models from other communities and put the Lubbock spin on it and own it, make it Lubbock, and it'll succeed. I think that's Dirk's. They sell chicken.
Yeah.
How simple. But they do it in a way that people love it.
Yeah.
And so you can multiply that out to whatever examples you want. And so it's super exciting to see, like, man, I'm playing with a rock climbing gym concept, or more bouldering, but because Lubbock doesn't have that right now.
Right.
And so what are the things that Lubbock doesn't have, because we have a community that's the size that can support just about anything at this point. And now post-COVID, people want those experiences. They want to support local. So there's a huge amount of opportunity right now.
Absolutely. One thing you just said there was like taking these other concepts from communities and putting the Lubbock spin on it. In your opinion, what is that Lubbock spin? What is that?
It can be anything.
Okay. Sure.
A huge influence on me is a guy named Justin Bernard. He's part of the reason I started Local LBK. And so just seeing him, he did 3 things that brought concepts from other areas or in the national market and put the Lubbock spin.
Okay.
One was Tumble Co., Lubbock's first co-working space. It was fun. I appreciated it. It was a lot of fun working there. But it was a first for Lubbock. Sugar Brown's was originally his. And so that was the first craft coffee shop in Lubbock. And so we had our Daybreak, we had J&B, but there was nothing that was pushing that third wave coffee of specialty coffee. And so that's super exciting for Lubbock. And it's now led to all these other coffee shops opening and creating opportunity for them. And then what else? West Crust.
Yes.
So artisan pizza. At the time, there wasn't anything.
Sure.
You could go just get your regular traditional pizza. But the fact he was playing with healthy ingredients from scratch was new to Lubbock. And then before that, Cilantro's. Do you remember it by any chance?
Yes, I do.
That was him. And so he brought fast, casual, healthy food to Lubbock, very much like a Chipotle or something like that.
Sure.
Before Chipotle was here. And so that's what I mean. It can be whatever version or style or speech of a brand that you want, but the fact that they made it their own and built brands built a following that loved them and supported them.
Sure. Yeah, no, I love that. And so kind of stemming off of that, my next question is, and I know you probably love them all, but give me a couple of local companies right now that really are standing out to you the most, or that you enjoy frequenting yourself, whether it be a restaurant, coffee shop, or retail store or anything like that?
So I'm just now kind of starting to get back out there. So,
Okay.
2020 was a rough year, and so trying to figure out like, okay, what do I need to do with my cash? Be conservative.
Sure.
So now things are open, things are safe, as long as you do them properly. Places I'm wanting to check out, Dirk's. Still haven't been there in person.
Okay.
So Dirk's is on my list. Mano Negra.
Okay.
Or I think that's how you say it.
I
the
don't.
micro or the Nano Brewery inside of Cactus Alley Courtyard.
Okay, I haven't heard
On
of
my
that.
list.
Interesting.
He's the guy that does the sodas at the farmers market in Wolford.
Okay.
So-
Okay.
He took craft soda, flipped it. Now he's doing craft brews.
Interesting.
Moto Medi. So the guy who founded Tika took his own concept and flipped it into Mediterranean food.
Okay.
And so that's in Lubbock now. Yeah, so these are all places that
Sure.
are like Lubbock originals that I think are going to be staples within
Yeah.
a couple of years. And so
Yeah.
those are the ones on my list so far.
Okay. Nice.
I could go on and on.
Sure. I figured you could.
Hills Barbecue. In the world of barbecue, I want to check out Hills.
Okay. Where is that one at? I don't know if I've heard of that one.
It's over by Cooper High School,
Okay.
and they just launched a burger concept as well called Nirvana. So
Okay. Now I've heard of Nirvana.
Mhm.
I've just saw that in that Lubbock Foodies group
Mhm.
that Dylan Moore had started, and yeah, I've heard some really good things about that. So
so Lubbock people are super talented and they're doing cool things. And
Yeah.
so it's just on the beginning of their curve of innovation adoption kind of thing.
Sure. So when it comes to, and you touched on this earlier about the creative side of Lubbock, for a long time, Lubbock has, I still think to a point, is perceived in other communities just kind of a, flat town with a lot of dirt, but we really are, and there might have been some validity to that there for a while, but now, like, we actually do have an art scene, First Friday Art Trail, and with the new Buddy Holly Center, I'm excited to see, like, the different types of performing arts that come in for that. But talk to me about, in your opinion, where the art scene is, just the creative scene in general. So that can be whether it be the arts or more to the like business commercial side, like what we do. But talk to me about where you see that at right now and what you're excited about for the future. Do you have your hands in anything in that front?
One of the content series I'm wanting to work on is showcasing the arts in multi-medium. So that's songwriting, that's dance, that's painting, that's ceramics, that's whatever medium of creativity. And so the way I see it, Lubbock has always been a playground for the creative. The flatness, I think, is what makes the canvas.
Sure.
So because we don't have places to go hike, because we don't have water to go swim in, where does your mind go? Your mind goes to inside, and it creates, is how I take it.
Sure.
That's not even an original thought to me.
Okay.
A musician back in the day kind of said, like, yeah, Lubbock's flat and boring, but so what do? We entertain ourselves and make things.
Yeah. That's true, though. It's really true.
And so with that, I think Lubbock is just getting to the point that we're having the organization and infrastructure to actually support and showcase these elements.
Yeah.
Luca is the organizer for First Friday Art Trail. They just had their, was it 400th?
Yeah. Was it 400?
200?
I think it was a 200th.
200th.
First Friday Art Trail.
First Friday Art Trail. And so it takes 20 years to make that tradition stick.
Yeah.
To be able to get things to scale. And so
Sure.
the fact that they've persevered this much means they've created a foundation that won't be hard, or that is hard to break at this point. And so from all the works they've done in facility and programming to collaborations and partnerships is what's allowed for all of that to come to fruition.
Yeah.
And so thank you for the hard work of everyone over at CASP and Luca and all their sponsors. And so seeing that is what is making Lubbock cool now.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people say, like, oh, what are the 20 years that went into an overnight success? Well, that's that.
Yeah.
And so now that we're past COVID, we're going to be seeing thousands of people out on the Luca Plaza having a fun time, drinking cool things, eating food from great food trucks, and walking and seeing and appreciating the art from the community. And so, and for some people, like, have grown up in Lubbock, oh, they still haven't been for the first time.
Yeah.
And so there's still growth that can be brought there. And so that's what excites me.
To be honest, I've never actually been to the First Friday Art Trail.
Well, let's
yet.
get you there.
I know,
dude.
I need to go. I keep telling myself I'm going to go. And I just never am able to make it out there. But I will one day get out there because it looks like a lot of fun.
Oh, totally.
I'm going to probably be there more for the food trucks than the art because that's just where my mind goes. But either way, I'm sure I'll find something to enjoy. And I like the point you try to make there is like, I've lived in Lubbock pretty much my whole life, right? Or at least been in the area for a while. And I'm still discovering new things, new restaurants. I mean, there's always a new restaurant popping up. But new experiences like the First Friday Art Trail. Like, again, I still haven't done that one. So, and I know there's a handful of other things out there like that too that I still haven't experienced. So you can live here for a long time and still probably not experience everything in Lubbock.
Oh, totally.
And I think that's where Lubbock gets a bad rap sometimes on the outside looking in is like, oh, I went to Lubbock. I bought the T-shirt, the hat and everything, and I had the Lubbock experience. Well, no, man, you really didn't. You know, there's a lot more to experience in this town now than even, like I said, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, especially. So, yeah, I'm really excited about that. One thing that is happening is the City of Lubbock branding campaign. Now, I'm sure you have probably heard of this. Yes, and the chuckle. Talk to me about that and what you think the impact of it. So obviously the chamber is putting that together, and they hired an outside agency to do that. And I know that's Constant Fly. I actually have talked with the guy that owns the agency that's going to be doing that. And I really personally, I reached out to him after they got awarded the contract, and he and I had a really good conversation. And I know they're on the outside looking in, but I really do think they'll do some good for the community, and they really do have good intent to loop people like, you know, local people in on it. So I think it's going to be good, but kind of give me your perspective and what you would like to see that go if it were up to you.
Oh, totally. I was actually, I saw that request for proposal and I'm like, man, this is like really, really cool. And on my side, I'm very biased opinion of, oh, that's what Local LBK does every day. We're out there telling the stories of Lubbock and helping people appreciate it in new ways. Yeah. So outside of that, I think it's smart. Lubbock needs an identity, and we need people to champion it. Say what you will about the business practices, Rager Dykes was doing an awesome job at being a champion for Lubbock. Yes. And so it's hard to bring that up because
I get it. But it is true though. But it is true though.
He cared for Lubbock and cared about making Lubbock a better place. And because of that and everything that's happened since then, there's a gap.
There is.
I feel there's not an individual or a specific organization outside of those who are repping the Lubbock, but not at the capacity that he was able to. Yeah. And so Lubbock needs champion or champions to kind of give it the way. Yeah, absolutely. My friend Nick Bergfeld is doing a lot on the activism side, and I'm loving seeing that, but that's more in the kind of social and political realm and trying to influence policy. But there's a whole lot to be done on philanthropy, arts, business, and then just kind of like overall Lubbock pride. Yeah. And so there's multiple facets that still need champions. So I'm excited to see where hopefully some of this campaign could come and speak to some of those things. Yeah. From there, with my Keep a Local flag, I'll say bummer it's not a Lubbock agency. Yeah. But on the flip side, if it's an agency that, one, because it's outside the community, can have an outside perspective and actually not be biased, that's exciting. Yeah. Because who knows how many filters we're knowingly or unknowingly looking at Lubbock. Yeah, and to that point real quick, I had that conversation with Ryan, the CEO over there at Civic Brand, and that was his point that he tried to make. He was like, because we're on the outside, we are able to see Lubbock for everything it really is. Like if it were just up to one Lubbock agency, well then all the money would be going to that one agency. It would be up to them to set the perspective that they already have from living in the community. So it's most likely they're going to feature the things they're already familiar with. We can come in and see everything for what it is. And they have every intent to over time, I'm sure, share that wealth with local businesses, looping them in, whether it be hiring other agencies that subcontract for them or whatnot. So it really, I think it was, on the surface, it's like, why did you go outside? But I really do think long term it's going to be the right move because they can get everyone involved. And then with a brand name like that, I'm imagining they specialize. That's all they do. That's all they do. The fact you're getting a professional to come in, because all of our agencies, they represent businesses, large organizations. We got that. Actually bring in a whole community
Yeah.
and truly represent what it stands for.
We got that RFP, and I was like, this just ain't for us. Like we don't have that knowledge to do this on this. Like I know where we're at, and that isn't it. So, and that's what I told Ryan when I talked to him. I was like, we can help, in whatever capacity you might need us to on like a smaller scale and be a piece of the puzzle, but we need somebody at the top that's pulling all of the strings and overseeing the whole project that has the experience and has done this, with other larger cities. So
overall, it excites me. The objective of this, I think, will just be really helpful for Lubbock. And so if we can have something besides a cotton ball to represent Lubbock, we're doing all right.
Yeah.
Which, not to diss on the agriculture, because we wouldn't even exist as a community without that.
But we've advanced beyond that now. Like that's still a big part.
Community.
Yes.
So many people, when they brag about the steady growth of Lubbock, it's because we've been able to diversify. Yeah. We have higher education. We have government. We have
medical.
Healthcare, and now a growing art scene. We have a growing wine culture, and so the whole wine industry is in the area.
And just the business community here is really strong too.
Yeah, all the secondary employers that are being able to do what they do because we have a population and economy here.
Yep.
It's freaking huge. So I'm excited, is all that to say. And so I hope Local LBK can partner in all that kind of stuff, because we're trying to come at it from the locals' perspective.
Sure.
So if we can help Lubbock realize itself with the help of other people, man, we're doing our mission again.
Yeah, for sure. No, I like that. Alex, I'm going to ask a question or I'll let you ask a question. I'm sure you've got stuff around branding and things like that. So,
well, no, not necessarily towards the branding side of things. I do think that I have, I have some questions in terms of like where you see, not necessarily like local brands, but in terms of like the first thing that came into mind when y'all were talking earlier was the YWCA. It's its own branch here. Obviously, it's got branches across the country, but to me, that's one of the branches that's kind of thrived off of the Lubbock community and turned itself into what it is now. And I do have personal ties there, so I may be biased a little bit, but at the same time, I've seen where they came from. I started as a Y Care counselor, and now seeing where they're at now, where they took that Kmart building and turned it into something huge for the kids of Lubbock, starting to cultivate a new community. What is your perspective on something like that, where they took something that was so small, but it was a national thing and grew with the community? What's your perspective on that?
In all honesty, I've had to change my mindset on that.
Okay.
Because the first 3 years of Local LBK, it was like local and independent only.
Yeah.
If you kind of keep up with the Keep a Local effort across the nation, that is usually the best practice or the key model of like making your community better, keeping dollars in your community is local and independent. But from there's a lot of things that are locally owned or locally managed or controlled that still make a huge impact. And so I've changed my mindset of like, okay, yes, my priority will always be raise the flag for the local independence, but acknowledge the fact that there's a lot more in making impact in a community than just local and independent. And so our model is changing. We're letting franchise owners, if they live in Lubbock, participate. They'll have some different criteria just to prove like how they impact the community, because profits are leaving the community. Yeah. But that's not to say they're not making Lubbock better.
Sure.
And so we want to acknowledge and respect that and say, hey, let us be a platform that helps you make Lubbock better.
Sure. Yeah. Man, that's some really good growth on your part there. Cause when we had you back on the last time, or, just, anytime I've talked to you in the past, like, you've really been hardcore on that local and independent. And I know why. And I think that's like good. And I'm glad that's still your focus, but that's honestly something that I've also realized over the last year as well, is like, especially with COVID really brought that to light of just how much like franchise owners getting hammered. Well, that's, I know a guy that owns several franchises in various different restaurants and things like that. And watching them get hammered, it's like, that's still a local guy that like employs local people. And I think that one of the negatives, if you will, of the local movement is like sometimes people turn on their blinders to the franchises and they're like, oh, we're only going to go here, forgetting that the franchise owner is still probably a guy you go to church with or school with,
lives right down the street.
Right, your neighbor.
And so at that point, it's not even like anti-corporation. It's just like, let's have a hierarchy of knowing what can make the best or the most significant impact and working with that as a moving scale.
I like that.
man, I hope I can work with some national brands and saying, hey, Uber, how can you help us help make Lubbock a better place kind of thing? And so Uber has no ties to Lubbock outside of employing drivers.
Right.
Not even employing its contract labor. So but you know what I mean? Providing opportunity and creating value within a market and an economy. And so with that, let's say, hey, what are things we can do to work with Uber or whoever to say, hey, there's ways Uber. Imagine if someone asked the driver, oh, what's a great place to eat? Well, instead of saying Chili's, let's say Dirk's.
Yeah.
And so, and get those dollars to be able to stay in our community a little bit more.
Yeah.
Because in the long run, that's tax dollars, that's business success, that's growth for local economy.
Yeah.
In a degree that's higher and more significant than eating at a chain or corporate.
Sure. No, I like that a lot. Well, as we're kind of getting close to transitioning out here, I've got a recurring segment that we have on the show is called Tic-Tac-Toe. So we're not actually going to sit down and play Tic-Tac-Toe, but it translates to tick or tap, or it's tick is tip. I can't talk right now. Hit all the memes. Yeah. Tack is tactic and toe is total domination. So first off, I'm going to ask you, what is a tip that you have for the business community, entrepreneurs, things like that?
Keep it up.
Okay. Yeah.
That's really what it boils down to. Either get started, keep working on that dream plan and reaching for whatever that objective is. Or on the flip side, if you have something already, keep it going. Lubbock is prime for collaboration. Lubbock is prime for growth. And so find people, because they're more likely to want to help you right now. After going through the ringer of 2020, everyone's like, okay, I'm back on my feet. We're in recovery mode, but I could be in growth mode with these other opportunities. So seek them out. Find people, professional services like yourself, partners like Local LBK or other businesses, and just say, hey, I think our brands are collaborative. We may not even serve or provide similar things, but our audience, our customer base might be similar, or our brands stand for similar things. Yeah. So
I love that.
Keep going, collaborate. And I think I said in the last video, collaborate or crush. That's always kind of been an internal motto. So
that's a throwback right there.
So that would be my tip.
Okay, nice. Tactic. What's something tangible that you do? Like some people, just to give you a little bit of context here, some people will say like, it's my nightly routine or my morning routine. That's what sets me up to crush the day, or, you know,
make a routine, because I don't have one.
Okay.
I would say, man, make time for people.
Okay.
Is what mine would be. Is I love having these kind of interactions. I have probably too many meetings in a week, but it's because I'm going out into the community and learning who's doing what, how can I help, who can I connect to make their things more successful.
No, I love that.
And so that is my tactic.
Yeah, no one ever made a huge, massive changes by just staying holed up in their room all day long. You got to be out, you got to be talking to people, and you got to be interacting with others. So I love that. Last is total domination. What's something that you feel like you're either currently like totally dominating at, or like on a path to be totally dominating at, or something that you want to be totally dominant at?
That's a fun one.
Yes, it is.
So my path for total domination is like, man, when people think local in Lubbock, I want them to think local LBK. I want our brand to be that pertinent, that relevant, that aware to the community at large. And so with that, hopefully through the brand partnerships with our business members, hopefully through the fun events and activities and content we're putting out to build awareness on our side, and through key partnerships just to make Lubbock better. It'll keep getting there. And so total domination hopefully looks like in a year or two, fully working solely for Local LBK, and maybe even scaling this model to other communities to help them do the same thing.
Okay, I love it. Well, with that said, as we're getting ready to wrap up here, I'll just roll out the red carpet for you, man. Give us like the 30-second what you got going on, what you're looking forward to. This is your time to plug yourself.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yes.
So there's a lot of ways to get involved with Local LBK. Step one, follow us on social media. Whatever platform you like, we're there. Step two, sign up for the app, or go download the app, create an account. It's free. Have fun. Check out all those businesses. I love to use it whenever I'm having a lunch meeting. Just scroll through and pick up a spot.
Okay.
And then from there, if you're down and want to save some money and support your community a little more directly, become a subscriber. That money is staying in our community. It's becoming dollars we use to brag about Lubbock. And so hopefully all of us working together will make Lubbock a better place.
I love it, man. Well, if you're listening to this episode, thank you for listening to it. I hope that you enjoyed it. I know I did and got a lot of good stuff out of it. Thank you again, Taylor, for being on the show, and we'll catch you guys in the next episode. Peace.
See y'all around.